In the heart of West Africa lies a nation once called Upper Volta, a land defined by resilience, courage, and rebirth. But long before the world knew the country as Burkina Faso, there was a man whose leadership set the foundation for its independence, a man rarely mentioned, rarely celebrated, yet profoundly important. Today, we uncover the forgotten journey of Maurice Yaméogo, the first president of Burkina Faso, a man praised, feared, criticized, but undeniably pivotal. Maurice Yaméogo was born on December 31, 1921, in Koudougou, then under French colonial rule. Like many young Africans of that era, he grew up under a system designed to limit African leadership, a system where colonial administrators held absolute power. But Maurice was different. He was ambitious, strategic, and incredibly intelligent. By the early 1940s and 1950s, he positioned himself within the colonial administration, learning the system from the inside. Some saw it as compromise, others saw it as strategy. And indeed, he was preparing for something much bigger. After World War II, winds of independence began sweeping across Africa. Political parties emerged, and young leaders started demanding representation. Maurice joined the Mouvement Démocratique Voltaïque, MDV, and later the Union Démocratique Voltaïque, UDV-RDA, parties pushing for African self-determination. He quickly rose to prominence, mastering alliances and political negotiation. His charismatic presence and bold leadership caught national attention. By 1958, when France allowed its colonies to choose greater autonomy, Maurice Yaméogo became the head of government of Upper Volta. 2 years later, on August 5, 1960, history was made. Upper Volta gained independence, and Maurice Yaméogo became the first president of what would eventually be known as Burkina Faso. Independence brought hope, but also immense pressure. The nation was young, poor, landlocked, and heavily influenced by colonial economic structures. Maurice Yaméogo knew that if Upper Volta was to survive, it needed stability, unity, and strong institutions. He implemented rapid Africanization of government posts, economic reforms to reduce French dominance, efforts to unify diverse ethnic groups, a push for national infrastructure and administration. He also championed African unity, supporting Kwame Nkrumah and Félix Houphouët-Boigny's dream of a strong West Africa. But his leadership style soon became controversial. As president, Maurice Yaméogo consolidated power, dissolving rival political parties and ruling through a single-party system. Critics accused him of silencing opposition, while supporters argued that a young nation needed a firm hand. Meanwhile, the economy began to struggle. Prices rose, salaries stagnated, public frustration grew. And then came the moment that would define his downfall. In 1965, the government announced harsh austerity measures, cutting public sector wages, including those of teachers, police officers, and civil servants. This was the breaking point. On January 3, 1966, trade unions led a massive protest in the capital, Ouagadougou. Thousands poured into the streets. For the first time, the young nation saw a historic national strike. Maurice Yaméogo, once celebrated as a liberator, suddenly faced overwhelming public pressure, and in a surprising twist, he did not order violence. He did not cling to power. Instead, he peacefully stepped down, becoming one of the few African leaders of his era to relinquish power without bloodshed. General Sangoulé Lamizana took over. Maurice Yaméogo faded into political silence, but his legacy was far from over. After leaving office, Yaméogo was placed under house arrest, his property seized, his wealth dismantled. From presidency to poverty, it was a dramatic fall, but life humbled him. Later, during Thomas Sankora's government, he lived quietly and peacefully. He was eventually granted amnesty and began rebuilding his life away from the spotlight. Maurice Yaméogo passed away on May 15, 1993, and with him, many of his contributions were forgotten. Maurice Yaméogo is not remembered like Nkrumah, Sankara, or Mandela. His presidency had flaws, and he had his critics, but he was the man who led Burkina Faso to independence, a leader who refused to use violence against his own people. One of Africa's earliest presidents to step down peacefully, a nationalist who pursued African unity and self-determination. His legacy teaches us that heroes are not always perfect. Sometimes they are simply people who dared to shape history, even if they stumbled along the way. Today, as Burkina Faso continues its journey, the story of Maurice Yaméogo reminds us of the sacrifices made to build modern African nations. Perhaps it is time we honor him, not as a flawless leader, but as a founding father who played his part in Africa's long road to freedom. If you enjoyed this episode, give this video a thumbs up, subscribe, and share it with some